Hello, Tony Belleci, sitting here with Eric. We're going to be at the API shop pulling and setting back pressure valves.
Okay, we have a 6-inch Cameron J-plug here. It comes in a BPV and a two-way check. Very versatile, depending on what job application we're running it in. One of the features it has is an anti-rotation pin. What that does is we run the plug into the profile. It ensures that we have a solid wall to turn the plug against, engaging it into the dogs, into the profile. So as we run the plug down, the plug will shoulder out into the profile. We will turn it up to one turn to find the cutaway for the anti-rotation pin to lock in place. At that point, it will no longer turn to the right. We will turn the plug 7 1/4 turns to the left. As we do that, the dogs will lock into the profile, ensuring engagement into the profile. And at this point, the plug is set. Okay, we have a 6-inch Cameron retrieval tool here. We run our retrieval tool down till we tag out on top of the plug. Okay. After tagging out on the plug, we will turn to the right and we'll begin to engage our tool. At around 2 1/2 turns, the poppet will be off-seated by the stinger in the retrieval tool, allowing us to see the pressure below the plug. It will equalize for the pulling process. Got 4 turns into the top of it. We're fully engaged into the plug. We will continue to turn to the right. Another 7 1/4 turns, which will release and disengage the dogs from the profile. The completion of our 7 1/4 turns, it'll come to an abrupt stop. The dogs will be completely collapsed, and we'll raise the lubricator rod with the plug attached. And that's the setting and retrieving of our Cameron J-plugs. What we're doing here is putting a Cameron 4-inch BPV onto a dry rod or T-bar tool, which is commonly called on the rigs. In the field, we still lubricate all plugs in and out regardless of the pressure on the wellhead, but on the rig floors themselves, upon completion, we are able to T-bar our plugs in. Typically, we're sitting about 25 feet above the wellhead at that point. So this is just a simple standard thread on the inside of this plug. We thread it on, count our turns, and this plug off-seats the poppet. So if we do encounter any pressure, especially out in the field, it equalizes all pressure, top to bottom. So we don't build below the plug versus what we have on top of the plug and what our lubricator's seeing. And after this is removed, This poppet you see, this rubber seal, will form a seal to the bottom and hold pressure from below. Another nice feature is if you're unsure of a pressure below a plug, below a back pressure valve, you are able to apply pressure from above until you see your pressure stop climbing and equalize out, and it'll give you a good verification of what you're dealing with from below. And this is our 4-inch Cameron plug again on our dry rod tool. The method of setting this, you can see that we have ears to engage the tool. When we need to set it after we have our turns, we'll come up and it will allow us to turn without spinning the plug. We run the plug into the hole. We will tag out, turn the plug to the right to feel a jump thread, which we just felt there. We'll continue on again, right there again. At that point, we know the plug is in the proper profile. Now we will go 6.5 turns to the left.
So you go down, pull your skip.
At 6.5 turns, we'll feel the plug get tight. We only apply less than 50 pounds of pressure to the plug. The sealing is actually in the body seal and not the threads. At that point, we'll come up. We'll feel that the plug is in position. We will continue turning to the right, approximately 8.5 turns. We'll go several extra to make sure that we do not hook the starting thread. At that point, we're released and the plug is set. At about 5 turns, the poppet seats itself, and at that point you have a seal from anything below. When we're retrieving this plug, we always use a lubricator for pressure containing applications. We do not dry rod plugs out anymore up here. So, as we would be running into the tree, we have our retrieving tool on. The tip would engage into the plug. We would bottom out metal to metal. At that point, we would start to turn to the right. At 8.5 turns, we would be fully engaged. At approximately 6 turns, you'll notice that the poppet will be off-seated by the tip of the pulling tool, allowing pressure to equalize. Right now we're completely engaged into the plug at our 8.5 turns, and the plug itself is reverse threaded. So we'll start the retrieving process. We have a 3-inch FMC ISA profile here. Not as common in Prudhoe anymore. Pretty much going away from it and going to the Cameron profiles. It's a very simple push-pull application with shear pins involved. One of the drawbacks to the ISA is they do not make a two-way check. You either have a back pressure valve or a tree test plug. A little more labor intensive as far as tree changeouts, setting and pulling multiple plugs and making multiple runs. With an ISA, we drop it through the tree into the profile, running down into the profile. The plug will tag out on the no-go shoulder. Pressure will set the dog in place, and at that point the plug is locked in. When retrieving an FMC ISA plug, you simply run down through the tree, tag out in the plug, here we have a 5-inch gray K plug. It's a back pressure valve. The K plug only comes in a back pressure valve. We do have a test dart that we are able to set in from the top side of this if we need to test trees or BOPs to get a topside test. Unlike the cameras, they do not make a two-way check. A bit more labor intensive when we have to get tests from both directions. So with this plug, we run it downward into the profile. And the downward force of our lubricator sets this wedge into the dogs, engaging it into the profile. At that point, we make 8 turns in a clockwise direction. We'll come to a stop, come up, and that releases the ears on our running tool from the slot on our plug. This lower assembly is a stinger unit. It's used to off-seat the poppet when setting the plug, which we can't see the internals here, allowing to equalize pressure as we're running through the tree. Okay, we have a gray test dart here. It has 2 O-ring seals on it that's going to seal into the top of this BPV. Being gray doesn't make a two-way check. To get a test from the top side for BOPs or tree replacements, we need to add something to the top of it to be able to test it. So we run our test dart down with the T-bar. It just simply sits in on top of the plug. It has a J slot on the inside. We make a turn with our T-bar, come up out of it, and at that point it will hold pressure from above. When retrieving, just the reverse order, go down into the plug, come up out of it, and that's it. One of the advantages of a gray plug and design is that the retrieval tool is also the running tool, so you're able to do both functions with the same tool. With all the other plugs, we do have to swap out and make multiple runs. As we run our retrieving earning tool into the hole, as we tag out on top of the plug, we will go up to half a turn in a clockwise direction. There's ears on our retrieval tool and some ramps on top of the plug. As we turn, we'll come to a stop. The tool will drop into the J slot. We'll reverse direction, go a quarter of a turn, raise up, ensure that we are engaged into the short side of the J slot. We'll drop back down. Make 8 turns in a counterclockwise rotation. And then we will raise up on our lubricator rod, disengaging the dogs, pulling the wedge out.